We're going to be talking to Carl Gallups this hour. He is a senior pastor of Hickory Hammond Baptist Church in Milton, Florida. He's been there since 1987. He's a conference leader, evangelist, youth evangelist, talk radio host, talk radio and television guest. And he is joining us today because of the issue of the eligibility of Obama. He is a graduate of Florida State University and New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. He also has many years as a former law enforcement officer, and we're going to talk to him about that also, because we want to get to the bottom of this Arpaio investigation. Thank you so very much, Pastor Gallups, for joining us in the Power Hour today.
Joyce, it's my honor. Thank you and your audience for having me on today. What a great privilege.
Well, thank you. And then we have a wonderful audience, and we have wonderful guests, and we want to get to the truth. That's all we want is the truth. We're tired of all the lies and the sham and everything else, and so we're trying to get to the truth, and thank you for helping us with that. All right, let's start with your interest in the Obama eligibility situation. It started a long time ago. It wasn't something you just picked up recently, was it?
Yeah, no, it wasn't. And thank you for asking me that, because very few people ask me that, and I appreciate it. It's very dear to me. Well, first of all, of course, yes, I did spend 10 years in Florida law enforcement, some of that as a criminal investigator prior to God's call to ministry. I've been in the ministry for probably 27, 28 years now, 25 years as the senior pastor there. So I was preaching a conference, Joyce, down in Orlando, back during the presidential election 2008 and during the campaigning, and I heard Hillary Clinton with my own ears, saw her. I checked into my room, turned on the television. Fox News was covering the conference, and she declared that she had evidence that would destroy Barack Obama's campaign. She was the front runner in the campaign at the time, and Obama was catching up with her. Yes.
Whoa.
And I called the pastor of the church where I was doing the conference. I said, turn on the news quick. I called my wife. I said, turn on the news. They heard it. They saw it. And she said she would be making an announcement within 4 days. She had information that would destroy his campaign, and it went to his eligibility. Now, so that, first of all, that means Hillary Clinton was the original birther.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know that or have forgotten that. When I have brought this up to people who have been immersed in this for years, they said, oh, my gosh, you're right, Carl. I remember that. I forgot that. People have forgotten that Hillary Clinton is the original birther. But, of course, we know what happened. The rest is history. Within a few weeks, Obama gains the lead on her. They have these conferences and secret meetings and confidential meetings. And the next thing you know, of course, he's won, and she's Secretary of State, and deals have been cut. And she never said another word. The media never said another word. And now there's a complete media blackout. But why am I concerned about this?
Well, before you go to that, I don't think I forgot about Hillary doing that. I don't think I ever knew Hillary did that. So I'm so glad you brought that to our attention.
Yes, well, thank you. It is shocking to people who did not see the conference. And here's why, Joyce. See, we should have been hearing about it for days, for weeks, for months after that. And she promised at the time she said that within 4 days she would bring the information forward. So I was waiting with bated breath for 4 days and never heard another word, never heard it muttered. And so I was switching back and forth between CNN and Fox and ABC and MSNBC, just seeing if anybody was going to disclose what Hillary said that she would, and it never did. And then, of course, we saw the handwriting on the wall when we began seeing the meetings and the deals being cut. But why am I interested in this? Well, people ask me, why is a pastor interested in this? Well, number one, when a person becomes a Christian, or when they receive a call into full-time ministry, it doesn't mean we hang our patriotism on a shelf. It doesn't mean we hang our brains on a shelf. I'm a patriot. I love this country. And I also recognize my first allegiance is to the kingdom of Jesus Christ. But I also recognize that America is so unique. Joyce, there are 64 nations of the world where it's illegal to talk about and do what you and I are doing right now. We would be in prison or be executed before the day is over. And so my desire is to preserve this freedom and this constitutional republic that God has blessed us with, particularly the First and Second Amendment. And when I see all of this being assaulted, a frontal assault, and the media cover-up, And we're on the cusp of losing our constitutional republic, which means, Joyce, you and I could lose our ability to do what we're doing. I could lose my ability to proclaim the gospel. We could lose our ability of freedom of speech. I'm a talk radio host as well. So, yeah, that's why I'm doing it, because I'm a patriot and because I desire to live in a country wherein I can still have the freedom to carry the gospel to the ends of the earth.
Well, we think we have freedom, but every day it seems there's a new bill, a new law, a new regulation, a new code imposed upon us. We just played the FBI Director Mueller's statement of, I don't know if the NDAA covers killing people in America or not.
Yeah, I heard that.
What the confusion? What are you talking about? And so, every day it's just one more incremental thing. It's like Gulliver, the Lilliputians, when the little tiny Lilliputians tied Gulliver the giant down one string at a time. It didn't, and then he took a nap and all of a sudden he couldn't get up with all these little strings. Those little strings are codes, laws, rules, and regulations that this alleged president has been putting on us as fast as he can since 2008.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent illustration, and if you don't mind, I'll steal it. I mean, borrow it from you.
Please.
No, that's a tremendous illustration. Well, and with this man in the White House that we have, it has been one constitutional travesty after another, one assault on the Constitution after another, to the point that he literally told Congress after executing the Libyan war, he literally told them, I don't need your permission. And what's so hypocritical and so unbelievably unconstitutional about it is that when George Bush was in office and when Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and Barack Obama were all three senators at the time, there was talk and rumor within the press and even within the White House that George Bush may launch a strike against Iran back then. And Joe Biden went ballistic, and I have video clips of him on the P.P. Simmons YouTube channel in which I operate, showing Joe Biden making the television news circuits declaring that if George Bush went to war against Iran without approval from Congress, that he would personally lead in the impeachment proceedings. It was blatantly unconstitutional, and he knew what he was talking about because he was a lawyer, and his office was filled with constitutional lawyers, and they had all affirmed that if a sitting president unilaterally started a war against a sovereign nation without approval of Congress, and especially when that nation was not directly attacking the mainland of America, that president could be, should be, and would be impeached. Mm-hmm. I also have clips of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama joining in with Joe Biden against George Bush, saying that they too believed the same thing and would do the same thing. Now, ratchet it up a few years, all three of those senators are now president, vice president, and secretary of state, or at least are in the offices. And all three of those senators are complicit in the very constitutional travesty, the very impeachable travesty that they were accusing George Bush of. And so it's one constitutional travesty, one spit in the face of the Constitution and the American public after another, and it's almost weekly now, Joyce.
It's incredible. And what we are looking at is an alleged president with alleged power that is just removing everything that is sacred to the American people. And the only one standing is Ron Paul. The only one literally standing up against him that I see is Ron Paul. There may be a few others, but I mean, he has been very consistent in that. So now we come to the investigation, which of course Orly Tates has done. She's been a guest on the show. She's been doing a really good job, I believe, at least from what I see, on bringing this forward. And then we've got Georgia, getting as far as Georgia, the state of Georgia, and they said, yeah, there's a problem here, and we're going to have a hearing over this. And then all of a sudden, Georgia gets a whole bunch of money from Washington, and, that case goes away also. Then we enter with Sheriff Arpaio. Now, this investigation is where I really want your background and feedback, because this is a potential criminal issue, and we've got a sheriff after that giant thud that was heard after he made his announcement, in which, and I always say, if a tree falls in the forest and CNN doesn't cover it, does it still make a noise? That's kind of what happened with this case.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Joyce, thank you for asking me. Yes, Joe Arpaio is a man after my own heart, and not simply because he seems to be the only one who's brought forth the information that is conclusive, but because I spent over 10 years in Florida law enforcement, much of that time between two different sheriff's offices, a deputy sheriff, several of those years in doing my own criminal investigations. And so, I'm a graduate of Florida Police Academy, went through all kinds of
hang right there. We're going to be right back after this 4-minute break. We want to find out criminally how far will this investigation go. Well, we'll be back with our guest, Pastor Gallups, after this 4-minute break. Stay tuned to the Power Hour. This is Joyce Riley.
On the average, Americans work between 45 to 50 years hoping to build up enough wealth to retire and live out their golden years. Unfortunately, with taxation, the rising cost of food, energy, housing, and
We're talking today to Pastor Carl Gallups, and his interest is in the Obama eligibility issue, whether he is or is not President of the United States. And Pastor Gallups, how can people listen to you and also come and visit your church?
Well, thank you. You're very kind for asking that, yes. The easiest place to find out everything about me, my national radio program, all of my ministry materials, archived materials, video materials, plus I'm the founder of the world-famous and viral YouTube site, a God and Country biblical apologetic site called P.P. Simmons, and there's a story behind that name. They can find out all of that at carlgallups.com, Gallups, carlgallups.com, and there they can also click the Listen Live link. They can find out all the times when I'm on the air. My flagship show is every Friday afternoon from 4 to 6 Central Time. It's called Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. We have a bevy of national and internationally known correspondents and guests. I have people that appear weekly who are in and out of the White House, in and out of the UN, in and out of the city of Washington, rubbing elbows with the very people we're talking about. So they give us deep, deep insight. So carlgallups.com is the place to go. Thank you.
Well, please definitely do that. And also your church, where is it located? Milton, Florida. Yes. Where is that?
Yes, Milton is just outside of Pensacola, and Florida is shaped like a pistol, and Pensacola is in the very tip of the gun barrel over near Alabama, near Mobile, and Milton is just outside of Pensacola. Again, at carlgallups.com, they can click the links, and they can find my church website with maps and everything, but it's easy to get to. It's a great church. I've been the pastor there 25 years. It's a dynamic, mission-minded church, and we're changing the world for the kingdom of Christ.
One person at a time, yes, and I do encourage you. There's a 9-minute clip you can go and see of their church service also, so please do that. All right, back to the issue of the eligibility. Whether or not this investigation is going to hold water is what everybody's concerned about, and how to pursue that.
Okay, well, and let me just finish where I was headed a minute ago with just a 5-second finish, and that is, if it turns out that Obama knew that the birth certificate, of course, was not his, then he is complicit in federal crimes and felonies. And so what I'm saying is this is so serious. I mean, see, Venezuela was started like this. Cuba was started like this, Joyce. People who went into office under elections and then spit on the Constitution, laughed in the face of the people, and intimidated them and frightened them until they actually became dictators. That's how Castro sees power. That's how Hugo Chavez sees power. And we're seeing the same thing happen to the point that Pravda, the Russian online news service, is reporting in their headlines they are aghast that the American media is not covering this astounding, amazing revelation brought forth by a 6-month official criminal investigation. Can you imagine, Joyce, for your audience, back when I was a deputy sheriff, if I had information that, say, a sitting county judge was in that office by fraud and deceit and by forged documents, and I investigated it for 6 months, brought in investigators and forensics labs, and we discovered that, sure enough, that little county judge was there by fraud and deceit and by forged documents. Can you imagine if the media refused to cover it, if the courts refused to hear it, or if anybody refused to prosecute him, and if I was castigated for uncovering the information?
Yeah, I mean, this can't happen is what we're all saying.
That's what I'm saying, and that's why I'm trying to tell your listeners without trying to appear to sound melodramatic, but this is the truth. This is historical fact. This is how Venezuela started. This is how Cuba started. We're either going to be a constitutional republic or we're getting ready to be a banana republic. And it is up to we the people, Joyce. It's up to we the people. We still have the power if we will exercise it. But you ask the question, where does it go from here? Well, the bottom line is, it's got to go to arrest. Now, let me tell you what Sheriff Joe Arpaio said. Then I'll give you my official opinions as to what it should happen or where it may go. Sheriff Arpaio said in that news conference. By the way, for your listeners that didn't see the news conference, they can go to carlgallups.com, click on our Obama Fraud Archives page. Right at the top, you'll see it. And there they can watch the entire 1.5-hour news conference in high-quality video and audio, and they can see for themselves. But Sheriff Arpaio said that he was pursuing arrests, that they knew for 20 minutes before that document was released on the Internet. They know the computer it came from. They know the office it came from. It came out of the White House. They know where it came from. They said that they would be making arrests, and that they were continuing the investigation because, according to Mike Zollo, the lead investigator, he said, and I heard him say it, and your listeners can watch him, that they uncovered so much more stuff that they were not at liberty to say that they would be investigating. He said it was astounding.
Okay, now, but before we go any further, though, he said there will be arrest made. Does he have the jurisdiction as a county sheriff to make arrests in this case?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking that. That was asked at the news conference, and the answer is yes, and there's several ways to do that. Now, first of all, I want your listeners to understand this. A sheriff is a constitutional law enforcement officer in a state. Now, let me just deal with Florida because that's where I'm from. The sheriff of a county in the state of Florida, he is a constitutional law enforcement officer. He's the chief law enforcement officer of the county, but he also has arrest powers within the state. He also has arrest powers within the United States as he works with and through the various jurisdictions. The sheriffs and the states arrange for that. So a sheriff is a very powerful law enforcement officer, particularly when he's engaged in an investigation that even takes him outside of his immediate jurisdiction. So, yes, Arpaio has this ability, not only because a crime was committed in Maricopa County, that is, a man was on the ballot for election who it looks like was there by fraud and deceit, and, of course, then he has powers in Maricopa County to go after the person who committed that forgery. And it's like Sheriff Arpaio said in the news conference. Somebody said, well, so you mean you're going to arrest Obama? He said, I'm not saying Obama forged this document. He said, I have no evidence that Obama himself forged the document. He said, but somebody did. Somebody did. And he said, we're going to make arrests. He said, a crime has been committed. Felonies have been committed. Now, what he didn't say, of course, and what he knows is that, but Obama's still complicit in these crimes because he held up the document and said it was his. But the other thing Sheriff Arpaio can do, Joyce, is he can then take his official jurisdiction and his official investigation to higher levels, like congressional criminal hearings, for example, or federal law enforcement levels. And don't forget, Sheriff Joe Arpaio spent 30 years with the DEA and was a high-ranking supervisor over the state of New Mexico with the DEA for years. Plus, he's a 5-term elected sheriff there. So this is a sharp, sharp guy with deep connections, and the Obama administration's terrified of him.
Well, he's not going to be making any kind of statements that he can't uphold, that's for sure. But
that's right.
So you're saying that he can go to higher law enforcement authorities, such as Mueller, the FBI director, who works directly for Obama, and try and get him to arrest his boss?
Well, yeah, but see, he's smart. Sheriff Arpaio's smarter than that. In the news conference, somebody suggested, I think the suggestion was made something about the Attorney General, and Sheriff Arpaio kind of laughed and said, oh, yeah, right, you want me to take this to Eric Holder, right? You know, in other words, he knows who he can take it to and who he cannot. I'm going to tell you, in my humble opinion, from all the research I have done, the Constitution of the United States puts this burden upon Congress. Congress is responsible for determining whether the man sitting in the White House, the man who is the commander-in-chief, is truly, truly eligible to hold that office.
Okay, but let me ask this question, because I apologize for stopping you, but it seems to me, though, that the people who did not vet him in the first place are then going to say, yeah, we're guilty of having not vetted him, which makes them complicit in the crime also, and the conspiracy grows and grows and grows, because there had to be people in the Democratic Party that turned their head otherwise, the Republicans who looked askance at this. There had to be the whole entire operation, including the FBI, because being in the military, and I had to have 8 pages, 8 copies, back when we used carbon copies, of that information went everywhere on your background. And you know that the president's got to be more than that. So it seems like everybody would be admitting their own complicitness in this whole conspiracy.
And this is one of the reasons why there's a news media blackout, because let me tell you where the complicity goes. The complicity is direct and indirect. The complicity goes all the way to the Supreme Court. Please do not forget that 5 days before Barack Obama was sworn in, he had a meeting, a secret meeting with 8 of the 9 justices. That was reported in major news media. And to this day, nobody knows what that meeting was about. Now, that meeting may have been illegal. Excuse me. At the very least, it was improper, because there were cases before the Supreme Court at that time concerning his eligibility, and the judges who would have been hearing it met with the defendant behind closed doors. And the next thing you know, every case that was before the Supreme Court was scuttled out, and Obama his eligibility to hold the office has been ignored by the federal court system. So, yes, direct complicity by people who were closest to him, who knew. Listen, Hillary Clinton, if she in fact had information, as she alleged, that he was not eligible to hold the office, but she swapped that for a position in the federal government, she's guilty of treason.
So basically, all these people are going to have to say, yeah, I committed treason, where's my hanging or my shooting or whatever. I mean, it just seems like everyone would have to admit their involvement in this. Now, what is the government doing right now, behind closed doors probably, to try and legalize his citizenship?
Well, there's no telling, but some of the stuff that I've uncovered, excuse me, I'm sorry, I have to keep clearing my throat. Some of the stuff I've uncovered, someone else did the initial investigation, and I can't remember who right now. I'm not sitting in front of my computer. I'm in a motel room down in South Florida, but I made a video. As far as I know, I'm the only one to make a video of the information, and then I further researched this guy's information to verify everything he said. And prior to Obama taking office, there were no less than 8 congressional attempts within a 2 or 3 year period just prior to Obama going in to manipulate and or change the constitutional understanding of natural-born citizenship status. Wow. Now, that smells to high heaven when you consider that within a few years after those 8 attempts, we have a man in office whom it does not look like he is eligible, and who there's been this controversy over. And what's so scary and hypocritical about it, Joyce, you will remember that John McCain had a full Senate investigation hearing on his status, and Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton sat on John McCain's hearing when John McCain's citizenship status was not the one that was in question. Obama's was. So watch
my right hand so you don't see what the left hand is doing.
That's right. It's smoke and mirrors. Yeah. It's a magic show. This is how banana republics are formed. The American people have to wake up, Joyce. We, the people, have to take our government back by legal means, but we've got to do it, or else we have lost it. It's one constitutional travesty after another. It's happening right under our nose. We finally, in the last 24-hour news cycle, I'm noticing headlines in Drudge and headlines of WND.com, we finally have some congressmen who apparently are submitting bills for impeachment right now because of his war in Libya. Well, finally, it's almost a day late and a dollar short, but that should have been started months ago. But finally, there's some movement, and then, of course, the Arpaio investigation. But this Arpaio investigation, Joyce, is monumental. It is epic. This makes Watergate look like Romper Room. This looks like Monica Lewinsky look like a little dalliance. This is of epic historical proportions, and the news media has blacked it out. I mean, it's like living in Soviet Russia.
You know, I can actually feel what you're saying. I hadn't even thought about it. This is how Cuba began. I can actually feel that happening to us, see that happening to us here. We've got to realize that we are on the precipice. This is it. This is it. Now, what can we do? Because we're coming upon a break right now, unfortunately. But after this break, let's talk about the action items that people can do. Where can we go? What can we do?
Okay.
And let me ask you this. Do you actually feel at this point that there will be criminal charges, that Arpaio will go forward, or is he going to back down?
No, I think Arpaio's going to go forward. I mean, if Arpaio backs down, then I'm scared to death for our country, because Arpaio's a man's man. He's a lawman. I mean, he's a man like myself and so many others, and of course there are women with these same convictions. I'm not trying to be chauvinist. I'm just talking about Arpaio. No, I think he's going to go forward. If he backs down because he gets scared, and the 6 criminal investigators get scared, and the forensics laboratories get scared, and all of these people involved in this 6-month investigation, if they all get scared and back down, then we need to look at moving somewhere else.
Oh, you got 100 on that test. You know, we just heard about the LAPD. I mean, not LAPD, NYPD. Welcome back to Power Hour. Thank you for joining us. It is 54 minutes after the hour. We're talking to Pastor Gallups today. The subject is Obama eligible? I think we pretty well know that now after the Arpaio investigation, but where do we go from here? Is there anything that we can do to promote this investigation, to let people know that this has happened, Pastor Gallups?
Yes, thank you for asking. And of course, we've got to support Sheriff Arpaio with our prayers, our support, our love, our encouragement, because he is doing what he's supposed to do, and he is kind of the front line of defense here. If Congress picks up the ball, begins to investigate, et cetera, then we need to support them. We need to let them know. But in the meantime, we, the people, we've got to get this information out. Now, let me tell you what I've done to try to make it easier for people. I've put together a website, a page. Now, hear me, folks. There's no advertising on this page. There's no gimmicks. I get not one penny. There's nothing that comes to me. It's simply an information page. It's called the Obama Fraud Archives, that catalogs real-time, up-to-date, everything there is on the Internet about this, including the full 1.5-hour conference. If we can get our people, if we can get your listeners to go to that page, like it on Facebook, make it go viral, get people going to it, get people informed. We already have radio programs going to it, news agencies going to it. We've got many, many thousands and thousands of people that are connecting to it in the last few days. And then that way people can know, they can know up-to-date, real-time what's happening. From there, I'm encouraging people, write letters to the editor, call your congressman over and over and over. It's a fact that if a congressman gets 25 calls on one topic in one day, they take note of it. They usually take some kind of action. Speak to large groups if you're connected to groups. If you have access to media in any way, there's a place on that page. If you would like me to speak to it, there's a place where you can book me. I don't charge a penny. There's nothing in this for me except for saving our republic. They can also go to P.P. Simmons' YouTube, where we have tons of videos archived. They can pass those around. The thing is right now is information, Joyce, because the mainstream media is blacking it out, and we're trying to trump the mainstream media.
What about the Christians, the church? Where is the church?
Well, the church has to pray, and ask God to forgive us, and ask God to save us and to spare us. The church should be involved in this, in my opinion. I know many Christians are just kind of rolling over and saying, oh, well, que sera. But what I'm saying is, look, if we lose this constitutional republic, then we also lose what you're doing, Joyce, what I'm doing on radio. We lose what I'm doing in the pulpit. We lose the ability to do missions and to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. The church would be absolutely remiss if it did not fight to preserve this constitutional republic. We're one of the few nations in the world that has ever had the freedom to do what the church does. Now, I know some people say, well, it might just be the last days. And it might be, Joyce. It might be. We may be looking at the days of the Antichrist. We'll see. But For right now, we don't have conclusive evidence of that. Right now, we're in a fight to save our republic so that the church can continue to go forth strongly from this constitutional republic. That's my opinion.
And we have to stand strong now and realize that it is now or never. We are at that point. There is no more, well, gee, if we can just elect somebody else, it'll turn things. No, we're there.
That's
the
right.
Constitution has been violated so many times. This president has one goal, and that is to take this country where he has been told to take it.
That's
and whether he is well-intentioned or not and thinks he's doing the right thing, that's his goal. That's his job, and that's what he will do unless we stop him. We'll be back after this 1 minute, 10-second break. Stay tuned to the Power Hour. Pastor Carl Gallups is our guest. Final segment coming up.